Good morning and welcome to this video podcast on the weekend's match between Manchester United and AFC Bournemouth. Before we crack on, just a reminder that if you want to hit the like button on this video and also subscribe to the channel, that would really help us a lot. So please do that. Meantime, Old Trafford, well, it was a bright start on Saturday. Ultimately, the same defensive lapses cost us the game, and we ended up shipping 5 goals, losing 5-2. Yet somehow, many of us are still feeling positive ahead of our last 5 games of the season. With me to discuss everything that went on this weekend is Neil Dawson. Neil, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much, Jeff. Yourself?
Good. Yeah, feeling surprisingly better than I did the other day. So, well, let's crack on, eh? Mm-hmm. Another huge match for us on Thursday as well. So let's talk about Man United first. I saw that team sheet and I was nervous straight away. What did you think?
I was surprised. Straight away. I was out yesterday, so I picked it up on the phone originally, and I'd not managed to catch up on any social media prior to it. So my initial first thought was, where was Steve Cook and what was all that about? Second thought was, where was Chris Mepham? And then you wonder, was there anything were those two things connected or not? And a little surprised we went with 2 up front. Because I just assumed away at a big team we wouldn't. Rico back. It was. It raised probably more questions than answers when you looked at it on paper.
There were definitely some rumours that because of Steve Cook's outburst, that he had come out in the press and said he wasn't very happy about Cook calling the performance against Newcastle embarrassing. And telling that story of the 30-minute lock-in after the game. I mean, I felt good on you actually for doing that, because we needed to feel that there was some real genuine hurt and actions being taken, but there didn't seem to be any connection. He's apparently got a slight hamstring problem.
We'll never know. I don't think we'll ever know. I think football clubs are full of stories like that, aren't they? People that have walked into changing room doors and all sorts that we've had in the past, haven't we, at this club? I don't think we'll ever know. I don't really think it matters, to be honest, because lots of stuff goes on at football clubs. I think what Eddie has come out and said was he wasn't worried about the inquest, the 30-minute inquest. It was just the bit that it got leaked to media. That's what he was irritated about. I would imagine he probably really encourages players taking a bit of self-leadership and sorting stuff out, because sometimes, they might want to talk about Eddie, they might want to talk about the coaching team. Sometimes it's best thrashed out without the actual true leaders in the room. I think it's quite a common tactic that a number of managers have used over the years, and there's probably no one better than Steve Cook to lead it, because he's someone that would probably feel the hurt of dropping out the division, having worked so hard to get into it all his career. Indeed.
So Lloyd Kelly plays centre half in his his 3rd game for us, pretty much in the last year and I don't know how long it's been. Anyway, so that gives us 3 left footers out of that back 4. He'd never played centre half before, not that I'm aware of anyway. So that was interesting. I felt a little bit more alarmed that we were still playing Solanke up front with King. What did you think about that choice?
Well, first of all, Kelly, he has played there because he plays there for England under-21s. So he plays in a back 3 for England under-21s. And as I understand it, Eddie sees him long-term as a centre-half because he's not, if you think of the type of fullback style Eddie likes, he's never going to gallivant down, get to the byline, go past 2 people like Charlie Daniels and Simon Francis did in their pomp. He's not that sort of player. So I think we will see him migrate to centre-back in the same way Tyrone Mings was signed as a left-back from Ipswich and migrated to centre-back. So in terms of Dominic Solanke, I suppose if you were to be kind to him, he wasn't the worst player against Newcastle, although you're really scraping the barrel to not be the worst player against in that performance. So perhaps with Callum Wilson out, it wouldn't surprise me if Eddie had said to him that you got 2 games to prove yourself. because he was no worse than anyone else against Newcastle and arguably slightly better than some. I suppose that's why he was in. I was more surprised just from a formation point of view, because I thought we would. The way United are playing at the moment, I think they 15 unbeaten, weren't they? And flying at home, I thought we would have dropped an extra midfielder in there with Dan Gosling having come on and scored. I thought we'd have seen him breaking off Josh King. And I think we'd have been better had we done that, personally. I know it's easy to be wise after the event. And also Dominic Solanke is probably a bigger topic in general, isn't he, in terms of is he a Premier League centre forward? How long can you carry on playing the way he is, and without that being questioned?
Yeah, I still have no idea what his favoured position is, whether he wants to play up front on his own, whether he plays off somebody else, whether he plays alongside somebody. I mean, I just can't see a fit for him, certainly in the sort of forward line that we've got. And we started off 4-4-2, and whilst we started off quite positively, it felt a bit end to end right from the start, and Fernandez was getting in between our midfield and our defence, which was causing us problems early on. Although counteracting that, we seem to be breaking with a bit more confidence and speed than we did certainly against Newcastle.
Yeah, it looked a little bit. I think that's why when you read everyone's posts, everyone seems a little bit more optimistic, because we've turned into a counter-attacking side, and then recently we've turned into a counter-attacking side that doesn't counter-attack, which is hence why we've, some of the stats that we've had are just eye-watering in terms of how could you play that many minutes of football without having at least a soft shot on target. Defies belief, doesn't it? So I think I think where the positivities come from with some of the fans is I don't think we expected to win. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is clearly turning Manchester United into a side to watch for next year with some outstanding players. And I think, we got caught a number of times between the lines, which is very Bournemouth at the moment. So one thing we need to address, whatever division we're in this next season, because we're so flat in terms of whatever formation we play, that they still play in straight lines and people can easily get between us. And we never get between other people. But we attacked. The fullbacks got more into the game. I thought Rico looked right in places, and it looked like a little bit more like the Bournemouth of old. But we were so fragile on the to be attacked back against, weren't we?
We were. Having said that, I thought there were a number of standout players. Junior Stanislas being one of them. I think it showed yesterday just what we've missed. He's intelligent with his passing. He's quick and zippy. Moves it very quickly around the pitch, and took his goal with what a beauty. I think there's nothing more delightful than seeing the England centre half nutmegged. And then De Gea beating on his near post. It was beautiful to watch, wasn't it?
It was a sort of goal that if Aguero had scored it against Manchester United in front of 60,000 people at the Etihad, people would have been talking about it and shown it. I think it's a shame that there was no one there and it was us, because it really was. I mean, he showed just great skill to do that. I mean, that's the frustrating thing about Junior Stanislas. If you go back 3 years, we had a spell where we literally revolved around him. I think there was a good sort of like 10, 15 games where he was scoring a lot of goals. He was like the go-to player to get the ball to. He's just had such a strange career because he's so stop-start, both in terms of fitness and also in terms of form, because there's been times where he's been fit and he's just not been worth a place. But then when you see him do something like that yesterday, that's the Junior Stanislas we all know that is within him. And he did really well to put that at the near post past De Gea, because you could see De Gea was clearly shocked. He had his arm out. He just wasn't expecting it.
It was great, and a great lift for the team. I think they all felt good after that goal went in, and you could see it impacted upon the way they played. The defensive play after that, immediately after that goal, was that we were a lot more compact and we were difficult to break down. And you suddenly began to believe probably in the same way that we believed at Anfield when we went 1-0 up, that actually we might be able to hang on. But 29 minutes now. Where do you start with that goal? Should it have been a foul, do you think, on Rico?
They sit in that bracket of they get given, they don't get given. So I would imagine Man United would have, had they been defending and had a full crowd, they'd have had that given as a foul because the crowd would all have gone up. I think technically it probably was a foul, but it wasn't so obvious that I think we can go on and on and on about it, because those ones do slip through the net. So you just got to defend what happens afterwards.
And the problem was it was Rico out of position. Yeah. Rashford occupies that position. The ball then sort of comes across, and I'm not sure about Smithy the last couple of games. He seems. I don't doubt his commitment and his passion and his love for the club, and he's trying. I just think he's switched off a little bit from what a good defender ought to do, and he gets suckered to go to the ball. Greenwood, it's an excellent finish, but we just felt like it was a bit soft to me. I don't know about you. What did you think?
Yeah, Smith, I'd say he's not. I think he's hacked off. I would say. I think the players fall into two camps when you're trying to dissect what's going wrong. I think there's a group of players that have already made their mind up where they're playing next year, and it's not us. And then I think there's a group of players who know that they're going to probably be here next year, who resent that a bit. And I would imagine, without any inside knowledge, that the kickoff in the changing rooms that everyone was talking about with Steve Cook would have been players like Steve Cook, Andrew Sermon, Simon Francis, who are like, this could mean a 50% salary reduction for them. And for a lot of them, their opportunity to play at the big stadium's gone forever. And I think Smith probably falls in that camp, because I don't think he's done enough this year to be picked up by a decent side as a right back. And I think a lot of it, I just think he doesn't look as happy as he used to. And I think that might be the reason, but it's pure guessing on my part. In terms of the goal, like a lot of goals we concede this season, no one got close enough to them. So I didn't see the game till I got back. I was working yesterday, but I was listening to the radio commentary, and whoever it was that was doing the co-commentary, an ex-pro, just kept saying, I cannot believe why Bournemouth don't get close to Manchester United. They're not closing them down. And he said, and I think that goal reflected that. There was too much time, there was too much space. And I think Ramsdale isn't getting his hands to shots that he should possibly get his hands to. And I thought we saw that with a few of the goals yesterday. He's been outstanding all season. There's no criticism of him as a player, but I think Artur Boruc in his prime would have got his hand to a lot of those, because they were all within reach. They all would have been fantastic saves, but for him not to make any of them, I just thought was a bit odd.
That's something that I've not thought about all season until yesterday. Should we give Rambo a rest, because he's conceded 9 in the last 2 games, and maybe it's just, I think he's an outstanding talent, but maybe it's just affecting his judgment a little bit and his confidence.
I think if Boruc was younger, it's been a long time since we've seen Artur, and he can look a little ring rusty when he first comes back in. I think the Boruc of 2-3 years ago would have got to some of those and saved them, but he probably would have made more mistakes than Ramsdale at the same time. So it's yin and yang with those two, I think. I don't think it would do any harm. I don't think anything we do now would do any harm, because I think we're in that camp now that unless we do things significantly different, we've gone. So I don't think anything's off the table. And if you do it and it doesn't work, well, it doesn't really matter, because, how often have we, I don't know what our win rate is in the last sort of 15 to 20 games, but it can't be many, can it? So
I think it's 2, maybe 3 if we go back to Chelsea, but it's not many, is it? No. And I think the penalty itself was a soft penalty to concede as well. The ball just sort of bounced up, hit Adam Smith on the arm. I don't think the ref had any alternative but to give a penalty in that sort of situation. Do you? No.
I think particularly all refs are now have more confidence, I think, because they know that VAR's there to help them. But it's ball to hand is very clear this season, so it was always going to be given.
So 2-1 down, and I get irritated by little things. There was really good pressing yesterday. I thought whenever United had the ball, De Gea had the ball, they looked very, very iffy passing the ball out, and we pressed them when we got some really good situations where we won the ball back. Solanke is pressing De Gea. The ball comes out. I think it came out to Brooks. Solanke is not back onside quick enough. the ball comes to him. He does a nice sort of pullback to Brooks, who scores. But you think he was what, a foot offside? Come on, work a bit harder. We could have been 2-2. Yeah,
and I think that's that you can see that in patterns all the way through since we've come back from lockdown. So the question is, are we fit? And if we're not fit, then that's terrible. But if we are fit, why is it? So in the Newcastle game, David Brooks, who's not a player we ever questioned, he just allowed Saint-Maximin to run at Smith. He just stopped and let him go. And there was a number of times yesterday that David Brooks did it. Josh King has jogged back at times where you think if he had, Tony Pulis or Sam Allardyce as a manager, he wouldn't be jogging back in a situation like that. It all seems to just be a little bit, and I think that's what the co-commentator was saying on the radio. It doesn't feel like most relegation sides just throw up everything at everything, come off the pitch exhausted, and often lose because of a slight lack of talent. I think that's the frustrating thing. And that Solanke incident you described there is a prime example of someone not busting a gut in a relegation battle, but he's not alone.
And then compounding the error by not closing down Martial, who scores on the stroke of halftime. You sort of felt, well, if it goes 2-1 at halftime, we're still in this game, but 3-1 down, it's like, oh, come on. And honestly, you look at the way when we're playing well, when we're defending well, the players throw themselves in front of the ball. When we played Brighton and Villa in those must-win games, that's what they did, and the fans responded to it, the team responded to it, and we get. We defend like our lives matter, and that again just felt soft. It was,
and I think what you can't take away from though, it was a world-class finish into the top corner. But there were at least twice beforehand that when they run the analytics, they will point to occasions like Solanke, and I don't know who could have got. There was someone else who could have got closer to him just before as well. That didn't, and this is the mystery, isn't it? Because why, we built a side based on that level of commitment, because when you haven't got, the money and huge amounts of talent in a squad, you rely fully on commitment. And you think of players like Matt Ritchie and Mark Pugh would have closed people down, come what may, they'd have got there, or they'd have got something to it. And it's that lack of desire to do that's the big puzzle. And the Martial goals are another example of it.
And there were two things that really stood out for me in that first half. Number one, we hardly got the ball to Brooks at all. I mean, Stanislas had a great first half, but everything was going down that United left-hand side. And what on earth is the attacking plan? Surely it is to get Brooks involved, because he is one of our most talented, creative players, but we just seem to be ignoring that side, which I thought was a little odd. And I thought the second thing was just, okay, should Eddie have perhaps changed it at 1-0? We're leading 1-0. Maybe that was the time to go 5 in midfield and really sort of, backs to the wall. Instead, we stayed open, and it almost invited United on. I mean, do you want to take both of those points? What do you reckon?
I think it's interesting, because I've always had a theory that if you've got two right-footed midfielders, the ball goes left. And we both Lerma and Lewis Cook will naturally have all of that left-hand side in their periphery vision, because they will be looking to play the ball with their right foot. And if you go back to our side that won came up from the Championship, we had that Sermon Arta balance, and invariably if the ball went out to Francis or Ritchie, it came from Sermon, because he left, and when it used to go out to the right, it used to come from Harry Arta. And I think you need that balance when you've got two right-footed midfielders. The ball's always going to go left to the left-hand side, because they're going to have to turn or pirouette to get it to go to the right-hand side more naturally. So I think that's that. What was the second point again?
The second point was, should he perhaps have been a bit more tactically conservative? Like 15 minutes in, we're 1-0 up. Yeah. Defend there. That's the point, to bring off the extra striker and put another defensive midfielder. I mean, Gosling for Solanke would have been Michael.
What you mean? Even when we were 1-0 up?
Yeah, like you could see United were getting more of the ball. They were building up a head of steam. Should we have decided then to try and sit on the 1-0?
I wouldn't have. Yeah, I wouldn't have made a substitution. I suppose with the 5 subs, you could argue you could make a first half sub, couldn't you? But I think you're destroying someone's confidence if you take them off. I think what might have been more plausible would have been to move King out to sit him in the right wing position, and Brooks or Brooks come into the middle to have a sort of like in the number 10 role. Certainly, because then that would have frustrated Manchester United and given them, an extra player to have to get through. Yeah.
Anyway, so second half begins, and there's a lot of criticism, sometimes justifiably so. I think that Eddie's team talks don't really seem to do much. Well, the first 5-10 minutes of that second half, wow, we came out of the blocks really fast. Danjuma had replaced Brooks, which I think, is... again, Brooks has an injury, but I don't think it's that serious from what I've been reading about it. Hopefully not. Danjuma came on, seemed to inject a bit of life into that attacking shape as well. We could have been 3-3, 4-3 up even, couldn't we, within 10 minutes of that second half?
Yeah, I mean, Danjuma hit the post, didn't he? I always think you can tell. Me and you, Jeff, we've lived through relegated sides before. Some of the younger fans haven't they? Because it's probably been a while since our last relegation. But relegation seasons have got a pattern about them that are so predictable. You have to you never win when you're any slightly off your game in a relegation season. You've got to be absolutely bang on your game to get any sort of win. And I think you also see huge slices of luck go against you as a pattern. So balls hitting posts and coming out as opposed to balls clipping posts and going in. You don't get penalty decisions. You contrast that to our championship season where anything that hit a post went in. We got a ridiculous amount of penalty decisions and were disliked by other clubs for it. And you can play badly and win. And come off the pitch not quite knowing how you won. So I just think we're in the opposite of that. And I think that spell... to me, just summed up what a relegation season is about. Obviously, we're not relegated yet, but it's possibly on the cards. But because we did have a great spell, and if either of those, either the chance we created had gone in, then Manchester United could have been a little bit rocked. I just always thought, however many we scored, they'd score 2 more.
Well, I was thrilled that the VAR decision on the shoulder being handball went in our favour, because the Burnley game still smarts in my memory from this season, and I thought that I was screaming penalty when it hit him on the shoulder. Mike Dean gave it. It was a good decision. It was the right decision. It was delightful to hear that the BT referee expert didn't actually know the rules. So. Yeah. that was funny, and Josh slots the penalty away. It was just then after that when I think Josh played in Danjuma and he scores, but he's offside again. It's that just small margins. Just look across the line. I know he's eager and he was keen to impress, and he'd hit the post a minute before. But honestly, if we get to 3-3, that kind of that would have been great. I had a Man U fan text me, that it should have been 3-3. This was after they scored 2 more. And I said, well, it absolutely, like you just said, sums us up, really, that things aren't going for us. And then you could argue that the 2 United goals that followed, one of them, we should have cleared it. Again, there was a marginal offside in that build-up that never got reviewed. Mm-hmm. And then the free kick, Lloyd Kelly, who I thought played excellently, just a bit over-eager, perhaps should have restrained himself, let the player have it. Instead, fouls him, gives a free kick away in Bruno Fernandes's perfect territory, really. And that, again, there's a foot offside in that, which you bet your bottom dollar, if that's us, we get that called against us. Mm-hmm. But doesn't go against United. They're suddenly 5-2 up and cruising. And the whole sort of last half hour of the game really felt a bit, how can I put it, a little bit meaningless. I mean, there were encouraging signs yesterday. I thought Josh King was making some good channel runs, which we haven't had, and Lewis Cook was finding him. He seemed to have his range. His passing range was a lot better yesterday, I thought. What were your bright moments for the final 30.
Interesting, Josh King playing against Man United, wouldn't it? Playing well.
Yeah, doing okay, wasn't he?
Can't think why. Can't think why.
Why would that be? Yeah.
So I think Lloyd, seeing Lloyd Kelly, because I do think he will be a centre back for us. So we've got a potential centre back partnership, haven't we? If we go down of Kelly and Mepham, which I think would be an outstanding with the backup that's around them. That could be an outstanding partnership. So it's good to see him playing well. Like you say, Josh King as well, bright. I think Lewis Cook's done all right since we've come back. I think it's a difficult side to play because we've always got just the two in midfield. So there's a lot of legwork for them to do. He definitely looks better with Lerma, who does more legwork than Billing. I thought Billing looked poor when he came on again.
He looks so out of touch, doesn't he? What is up with him? Do you think he's already thinking about next season and where he's going to be playing?
Well, he can't go anywhere else, can he? No one's going to sign him because he'd have 3 relegations in a row. It'd be like having Alan Ball come and manage it.
Fair point. But what about that sort of defensive unit? Do you think there needs to be wholesale changes for the next game, or do you think Eddie can just sort of, I don't know, have a chat with the players individually about some of those costly errors? What do you reckon?
There's just been too many, hasn't there? But I think that I've always thought we need a proper defensive coach. So though Eddie was a centre half, so was Jason Tyndall. On his own admittance, he finds it easier to attack, and these are his words, not mine. Finds it easier to coach attacking play than defensive play. And I just think we need an old-fashioned defensive coach that really understands where players should stand in different scenarios and work with people individually. Because as the players themselves are excellent. We all know Nathan Ake and Steve Cook on their day are fantastic. I think Kelly and Mepham, there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. Nothing wrong with Smith. Rico, I think jury's out on. Jack Stacey's strong player. They should be defending better than they should. And then you've got what is the role of central midfielders in terms of that helping their support out. And I think when you play 2, the danger is that they get caught too far up pitch. You can't have one sitting central midfielder when you've only got 2 in central midfield. So Jefferson Lerma's always got to do the join the attack, get back, join the attack, get back. So there's something fundamentally wrong with the way we defend as a team, and there has been since we've come into the Premier League. We knew what it was for the first 3 years. We just attacked too much, and the fullbacks used to get caught up the pitch and they couldn't get back, and we got took apart on the break. The byproduct of that, though, was we had the ability to score 2 or 3 goals in any game, which was enough, particularly against the lesser sides, to keep us up. Now we've taken away the desire to do that by becoming a very defensively sat back side, but we've not coach the intricacies of where to stand one defending and who to pick up and who to leave and what runs to track. So we now just a side that concedes as many goals as we did before without scoring any at the other end. And that's the nutshell of it. And I think the only way you'll solve that is to bring in someone that understands how to defend as a football team.
I agree. I think 4-4-2 can only work if those wide players are a certain type of wide player. And yesterday, I mean, you look at the wide players that we've got. I think Stanislas has been doing an outstanding defensive duty, considering he's not really a defensive midfielder. Yeah. I don't think Danjuma is that type of player. He's a flamboyant, attacking-minded winger. He's not going to track back.
One of the traditional European front 3, yeah.
Exactly, and on the other side, well, Brooks, when he's fully fit, shows that he can track back and do good defensive work, but not in the shape he's currently in. I think he looks like he needs a whole pre-season and then about 10 more games before he's anywhere back to his best. So I know we've talked about this a lot of times during the season. It does feel a bit square pegs round holes still watching that game yesterday.
Yeah, and then also just this constant chopping and changing. So, we've always seemed to know what our best side was before. So, therefore, if we've had a bad game, we've still persevered with those players. And I think people knew where they were at. What we've seen recently is that you come in, you have a bad game, you're gone. So the lack of consistency in the side is alarming. It'd be really interesting to see how often we kept the same side this year. Again, I haven't done the exercise, but I know off the top of my head, there's hardly ever do you see a side and it's the same side that played the week before. And it's almost like I think the players know they've only got to have one bad half and they're off. So Lewis Cook will often play half a game and then go off for Billing. Billing will often play half a game and off for Lewis Cook. Harry Wilson either plays the first half or the last half an hour. And I think that just makes for complete disjointedness. There were two things I hoped for when we came back from lockdown, and we've not had either. The first thing I hoped for was that we would sit higher up the pitch. It doesn't matter what formation we play, just get the whole block higher up the pitch. That was the first thing that I hoped that we would do. And then the second thing that I hope we would do is just return to getting the fullbacks overlapping and just have some form of adventure and spirit about us, while at the same time deciding on a hardcore block of 14 players and saying you're going to be it, you're the ones that are playing, and if you have a bad game you'll stay in, but we've got 9 games and this is how we're going to play. And we haven't done either of those things, and I think that's why we've looked worse since we come back than we were before.
And what do you think Sam Surridge has to do to get off the bench and play?
Well, I guess the technically correct answer is he has to do more in training, I would imagine. So I think Eddie's indicated that there are technical issues that he needs to work on for him to be a Premier League player. What I cannot understand, because that's the sort of the technically correct media answer to that question. I think what begs the question is there is no better technique in Solanke than there is in Surridge. So are we not better off giving Surridge a go? Because the one thing we do know about Surridge is he has goals in him. He scored goals at a decent level of English football. So the Championship is not the Premier League. There's been lots of goal scorers that have managed the Championship well and not the Premier League. But he's not been tried, and Solanke's never scored goals at Championship level. And I doubt he will either. We may well find out, but I doubt he will. So it is a mystery. It's a real mystery. But I guess the answer is he's not quite done enough in training. But I can't believe that.
The other concern, we talked about the centre-half injury issues, but just generally injury issues. So I thought before that Palace game that we had a full fit squad to choose from, and Simon Francis hasn't made it onto the bench yet. Arguably, is he a game changer? Well, yesterday I think he could have been useful. Mm-hmm. Andrew Sermon, we talked about him earlier. Maybe he has a role in midfield, and yet he's not available either, it seems. And we had 2 goalkeepers on our bench yesterday. Yeah. What was the thinking there? We're going to bring Travers on to play up front.
He wouldn't have done any worse than Solanke. But no, that's cruel. That's cruel.
Cruel.
I think it was because Mepham pulled out while up there, didn't he? As I understand it. So it was literally, you're here, you might as well name it. It's a bit tin pot, isn't it, to name a bench where you can't fill a bench. It almost takes us back to the days when we used to write to Sam Vokes' headmaster to see if he could get off school to be a sub in a game. Oh, no, it was Jayden Stockley, wasn't it? Stockley. I think it's almost going back to those days when you got 2 goalkeepers on the bench. But I think it was just the nature of a very late pull-out who was available to come on.
And if we're short of midfield players, any chance we could recall a certain offer ball from Wickham after that cracker that he scored for them?
I don't think the rules allow it, do they? But again, it's sounding really dreadfully pessimistic. I've kind of resigned myself to Championship football next year. I don't know whether that's fair or whether that's just me mentally protecting myself. But you're kind of looking at what the nucleus of that side may be, because we should get an influx of cash for players, and we've got 90 million parachute money coming over 3 years. And then you're looking at players like I can never say his name. What was it?
I called it Offerball, but it's probably wrong.
Right, Offerball. So you got players like Offerball coming back, and he's been in and out of the side at Wickham. I don't think he set the world alight, but that goal was very special. You've got is Dobre going to be any good? Eddie's got a lot of faith in him. He's not managed to get into Wigan's side though, has he? But there's been a lot of players that haven't got into other sides that Eddie's turned into really good players when we were in lower leagues. Simon Francis being one of them. So it could be really. He could come back next year, and we could see the basis of a team forming around some younger players.
Okay, then final question: why are we all feeling so much better after yesterday's 5-2 hammering than we were after a 4-1 hammering?
Well, I think you got Manchester United. You've got the fact that we were away, and I think you've got the fact that we looked like we had goals in us from open play. So I think they were the three factors.
Actually, yeah. Sorry, Neil. What were the stats actually? How many shots did we manage? Because it did seem like probably more shots than we'd managed in our 4 previous games.
I should have researched it, but I haven't. But there were definitely more. And even if you take shots out of it, we just looked a little bit more dangerous in interplay around their box against better defenders. I think the massive gut wrench is why we couldn't get ourselves into that level of performance for Palace and Newcastle, because yesterday wasn't a game that any of us really had down as 3 points. Neither's Man City. So all of the others, if we play well, we have a slight opportunity of points. But the 2 standout fixtures were Palace and Newcastle in which to do that. I think we will always regret the fact that we couldn't, because those 6 points, the way everyone else is playing, I think would have been all right.
There was definitely an element of a free hit about yesterday's game, and the players looked like they were enjoying playing a bit more with a bit more freedom. That suited them. They didn't look as pressurised, and for that 10-minute spell after half-time, albeit we were 3-2 down, but we were in that game, and it felt like the old Bournemouth, which, whether we go down or not, I think I'm happier seeing that sort of performance rather than that abject surrender that we saw the other night.
Yeah, we're not a demanding fan base, I don't think, compared to the fan bases at clubs like West Ham or Newcastle. Most Bournemouth fans are happy to be in just delighted to be in the top 2 leagues in the country and to play football because it's an entertainment business. And I think that's kind of all that we want. And that's why a lot of radio commentators can't understand why we're not all phoning up demanding Eddie Howe to be sacked. It's because I think only Bournemouth fans understand our expectations.
So another huge match for AFC Bournemouth on Thursday. Keep an eye out on the YouTube channel because there'll be a lot of content between now and kickoff. But until then, thanks very much, and we'll see you in the next video.